are ready to get started with our next topic of the day. It's really fun to see so many faces and cute puppies and dogs of various ages here in the room together. So, hello, my name is Emily. If I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, my name is Emily and I am the director of our service dog program here at Dogs Inc. Just a little bit of background, I've been involved with this organization since 2019, but prior to that, I've been working with animals and people, which is a good fit, right, for assistance dog work in a variety of different capacities for about 18 years now. But with the service dog team, that's the team that I'm with most days. That's the team that we're building to be able to increase our numbers of dogs that are placed as task-trained service dogs with veterans out in the community. So we're doing the service dogs as well as our therapy dogs that are at a variety of different facilities. So a little bit of background.
Hello everyone, I'm Jennifer Johnson, the director of the Guide Dog program. I have been here, it was 19 years on June 26th. Thank you. Prior to that, I worked in a veterinary clinic, and prior to that, I did financial software. So no offense to anyone that does financial software, but I find this much more rewarding. And that's why I spent the last 19 years here. Today, we are going to talk to you. Our topic today is about the match process. And we're going to give you a little insider glimpse into the match day with our students. And this is it seems like a small topic, but there is a lot that goes into the background before we get to match day. So we're going to talk a little bit about what comes up to match day, and then how matches are kind of made behind the scenes, and then what the final output, how we make that final match. We're going to start off with a little video.
I sat in my room, and there's a knock at the door, and the people keep it, and my goodness, you couldn't have been more excited.
That was a magical moment. It was like love at first sight. We were like the smooth crew from the jump.
The first time I met Taylor, it was like, I was so happy, like, oh my goodness, I have a new dog, yes! I mean, I immediately want to play with her, cuddle her, everything.
It's like Taylor knew Kaylee's heart needed some help, and that's why she was here. And I can relive that moment every day. It was beautiful.
Getting to Biscuit is a blessing. He keeps me calm. He's my best friend. He's always with me by my side.
Thompson's personality is nothing but unfiltered love.
Bravo has given me many reasons just to carry on and continue to live my life and pursue my passion for aviation. Gosh, he has just put a smile on my face, as you can tell.
Buddy has given me a newfound sense of freedom. I can go into the world without fear of all these things that make someone like me insecure.
Seeing him have that confidence in knowing Mom is not the only safe person in the world, I can trust this dog.
From the moment that we met, your word the way.
She's made Lily more independent. When she gets pets and loves, and that's all she wants. She just wants to be there for Lily.
Look at all these things that we're doing and all these places that I'm able to go now. I can do that because of Lolita.
Oh, this could be the best thing that I've ever.
These dogs are changing lives. They are giving lives back. They are helping people, children, my daughter, to feel like life is worth living again.
Any of us that have received a dog, we can tell you that your money that you donate is well invested into these dogs. We appreciate you. We appreciate everybody that had a hand in making Lolita a part of our family.
From the time that he was born, he was destined to be a superhero. He was destined to be my superhero. My life will never be the same.
So very powerful reminder, right? A little dated, but still a very powerful reminder of why we're all here and why you all do what you do. And what we hope you take away from this is knowing a little bit more behind the curtain, behind the scenes of just how much thought, time, care, and consideration the training teams and everybody involved in the process puts into trying to find that right match and that right niche for a dog to go into, where they're not only going to be successful as a dog in that role, but they're also really going to enjoy the work that they're doing. So at the end of the day, it sounds cliche, but it really never gets old. Getting to know a dog and really getting to know their quirks and their personalities and what they like, what they dislike, and then seeing another person actually enjoy the same things that you really loved about that dog. It's a bittersweet thing, but man, I got goosebumps just talking about it. So hopefully you know these little moments of connection that you have with your own dogs, those are going to be moments of connection with the person they end up with, and that's a really, really rewarding thing.
So let's start off with the application process and how do we get our applicants before we make these matches. So the application process is fairly lengthy. There's a lot of paperwork that needs to be filled out. They start with a pre-assessment online on our website for both service dogs and guide dogs, and it asks a whole slew of questions regarding their lifestyle, their home life, their work life, what their expectations are of a dog, even the financial responsibility that is going to be expected of them on that pre-assessment. And the point of the pre-assessment is to give them a little bit more insight into what it's going to be like with a guide dog or a service dog before going through the entire application process, because it is very lengthy. So once they make it through, and there's a lot of information that is given to them on that pre-assessment based on their answers that they give. Once they make it through the pre-assessment, they make it to the general application. So they receive a link to the general application. And that's where we are also not only going to require information about themselves and where they live and that kind of stuff, but we're also now going to ask for some paperwork, some medical background. For guide dogs, we ask for a vision report. We have personal references. For guide dogs, we also ask for orientation and mobility reference. So they already have to know how to travel with a white cane before coming in for a guide dog, and we require that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of overlap with service dogs, so we're looking for a referral from a primary health provider, a primary care physician. If the dog is going to be what we call a psychiatric service dog and assisting somebody who has post-traumatic stress, they want to mitigate that out in public spaces, there's a lot of requirements that that person is established with a mental health provider, and that mental health provider is recommending this as a modality that's going to help that person. If we're doing a mobility assistance dog or we're doing something that requires more physical tasks from that dog, we're getting that referral from their physician. And then other than that, really similar process with personal references and just gathering as much information about this individual as possible. I think it goes without saying, but for both service and guide dog, we want to be realistic, right? That these are very well-trained dogs. They can change your life in so many ways, but at the end of the day, they're a dog, right? And it's a big commitment, and they're not perfect, and they're not going to solve every problem you've ever had in your life, right? That would be convenient, but we want to make sure that whether someone's navigating the world through orientation and mobility training, or they're navigating the world through support from their providers, that the dog just takes it to the next level for them and opens the world in a different way, and it's not the only thing that individual's doing to mitigate the challenges that they're having.
Once the application process is done, we have a committee that reviews these applications. So the applicant actually has to go through the committee review twice. The first one is when they finish their general application and we've received all their paperwork, and then the committee reviews and sees if this is a good candidate for either a guide or a service dog. If they are approved, the next step is for us to visit them in their home. So every applicant, whether they're a new client to Dogs Inc. or they're applying for a successor dog, does get a home interview, an in-person interview in their home. And this is where we get to meet the person for the first time maybe, and get to now get to know them not just on paper. So what their personality is, how they interact with other individuals, and we get to see what their home environment is like, and also maybe their work environment or their school environment. Are they going to high school? Are they going to college? So we can get a more full picture of this individual, which will in turn help us match them with the very best dog that we can.
And meeting family members is a big part of that as well in the home environment. We all know a home environment can be very different depending on who is there. And so making sure that if they have a partner, significant other, that that person is supportive of bringing a dog into the home, meeting children, making sure that that dynamic is set up so the dog and the person can be successful. There's a lot that goes into it.
Absolutely. So speaking,
go ahead.
Go
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So then, once we've gone through that entire process, which is a lengthy process, we've done our due diligence, we have an accepted applicant, they're then on a wait list. They're approved, they know that they're on our approved applicant list and that we're seeking a dog for them. And the wait time varies, as you all know, because we are now putting together a jigsaw puzzle. And that jigsaw puzzle is, who is this dog? What skills have they been taught to perform? What personality, temperament, energy level do they have? What types of exposures have they had to the world? What type of environment did they grow up in? Are they excellent living with a cat? Have they never lived with a cat? All of these things can factor into a decision we might make if we have an applicant that needs a specific type of dog for their lifestyle to really benefit them. So you can see the puzzle graphic up there, and then the list of just a few of the ways we're gathering that information. Puppy records, so records that are being submitted from when puppies are in the puppy raising program. That could be really good to go back and cross-reference. And again, we're not seeing these dogs day to day in a home environment. Once they're in for formal training, they may occasionally go with a volunteer or even an instructor on trips, and we see that behavior across different circumstances. But for the most part, the information shared from their history growing up and having structure in your homes really sets us up for knowing what that dog is like in a home environment. We have training checklists. Boy, do we have training checklists. We have a lot of checklists that we work through in all of the different programs to teach different skills as well as tracking different exposures that the dogs have. Those are also inputted into an online system called IWDR, that's the International Working Dog Registry. So we're doing note taking that anyone can go in and at a glance kind of paint a picture of who that dog is and where they're at in training. And then we also make use of, we have a volunteer overnight host program for volunteers taking dogs home. That will vary. Sometimes it might be a dog who we want a better assessment of their house manners. Maybe they've been opportunistic in the office and shown interest in the table or the counter, and we want to get a better read on that. Maybe they've been on campus for a while and we think a nice break would do them some good. Just reassess how they do in a home, how do they act with another dog or a cat present, you name it. There's so many valuable ways to just gather more information, similar to if you send a puppy out to puppy camp. And then last but not least, on this slide, we have volunteer handling. So we have a huge group of very dedicated volunteers, puppy raisers and above and beyond, that spend time working with dogs in training. There's different opportunities, whether it's enrichment volunteers on campus. We have different basic handling classes. Depending on the training team's goals, we might have additional continuing education for volunteers to get their hands on these dogs, and that's so insightful because sometimes a new person picks up that leash and the dog says, what was that sit that you speak of? I've never heard that word before, right? Because they're dogs and you have to be consistent, you have to reinforce what you want, so passing them off to new people and making sure the dog can generalize that behavior in new situations is really helpful to us as well.
So I'm going to skip back and do a demonstration right now. So one of the things that after we have the full picture of a dog, especially in the guide dog program, is how fast do they walk and how much guiding tension do they offer when you put that harness on. And we call that pace and pull. And if anybody's ever heard me, all I'm looking for, the first thing I'm looking for in a guide dog is purposeful pace and pull. And so once we have that established and we've put the puzzle together of that dog and we know that pace and pull, that is one of the first things that we match with our applicants. And we've already got it on the dog because we've known them for 4 or 5 or 6 months. When we meet the applicant, we want to know how fast they walk and how much guiding tension do they prefer or they need from the dog. And that will vary. Some people will prefer a very light pull in the harness. Some people will prefer a very hard pull. When I work a dog, especially under blindfold, I like to have a lot of guiding tension. I want a lot of purpose in that dog to just take me wherever they're taking me. And but that's not everybody's preference, and that's not everybody's capability either, as far as strength. So one of the things that we do, 2 of the things that we do when we're doing a home interview with a guide dog applicant is we do an independent walk with their cane. And that's so we can see how they travel independently, what are their orientation and mobility skills independently. And then we do what's called a Juno walk. A lot of you may have heard that before. And that's where we put a harness in their hands and we get them used to using some of the cues that they're going to use with the dog and also get used to that guiding tension. You know, a cane does not pull on you, so this is a completely different feel for them. This is what we call a Juno harness, so it's just a rectangle. It's only part of the harness, and the reason for that is because it's much easier to travel with this in a suitcase than it is with a full guide dog harness. So, does anybody want to do a Juno walk with me? I have
a volunteer.
All right.
Without a dog.
And I'm just going to talk the way that I would talk with a guide dog applicant. We're just going to do a very simple walk from my left side of the room over to the right side of the room. So I am going to come through here in front of the stage, and I just need it a little bit, just a clean path here. Okay. Hi. Hi, I'm Jen. Nice to meet you. Would you mind putting this blindfold on? You don't have to put it on, but would you like to? Okay. Yeah, you can put it on over your glasses. Okay. Give her a minute to get settled. Has everybody worn one of these blindfolds? No? They have no light letting through, right? Okay. So guide dog is going to be on your left side, so I'm going to stand on your left and I'm going to ask you to pick up the harness. And when you walk with a guide dog, you want your shoulder and your arm to be fluid. So there's a fine line between having some fluidity in your arm here, but then holding back and feeling some tension on the dog, okay? So when we talk to a guide dog, it's in very simple terms. It's going to be the dog's name. You can call me Juno. And then you'll give me a direction, and if there is an objective, you'll tell me where to go, such as find the stairs, find the chair, something like that. Right now, we are just going to move, and you're going to follow the harness. It's not going to be in a straight line, because I want to see how you track this harness, and how much control you want to keep, versus how much you're willing to hand over to the dog, okay? So the whole time, keep your arm nice and right here, almost by the seam of your pants. Yeah, it doesn't have to be touching you, but you just want it to be falling naturally. So if that's where you want to hold back and you want to have some tension on there. And tell me what is comfortable, okay? So we're gonna start moving forward and then we're gonna move to the right, okay? Oh, sorry. Okay, so then you wanna talk to me, Juno? Forward. And then good girl, good girl. Thank you. We're going to turn. There you go. Is that a comfortable pace? Okay. Let's walk a little bit faster. Okay. Hold back a little bit then. Good. You want to walk faster though? Okay. We're going to turn to the left. We're going to turn to the left here. Okay. And then again, forward. Good. Thank you. Tell me how good I am. Thank you. Thank you. Is this a good pace and pull? Okay, we're going to turn to the left. Good. Good. Now we're going to turn all the way around to the right. We're going to do it one more time. So, Juno, forward. Good. Good job letting me take the first step. That's really important. Okay, we're gonna pick up the pace here. Is that comfortable again? Thank you, good job, good voice. Good, and halt. Excellent. You can turn around. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. So that's a little bit of insight into how we talk to somebody who has never had a dog before, worked with a dog, and has no expectations of what it feels like to have a guide dog, a harness in their hand, and doesn't really know what they want for a pace and pull maybe. So we do it several times, and we'll probably do it for a longer stretch of time. It's great if we do it on a route that they already know, so they know what the surrounding area is like and how fast they would like to move in it. And then we take that information back, and we will get a GPS speed on them as well. So we can GPS speed the dog, GPS speed the applicant, and then when we're going to match them, we can find a dog that walks just a smidge faster than the person so they get that guiding tension that they want.
Yeah, and you can really appreciate watching that probably everybody in this room would have a slightly different preference as far as the tension and how fast it's going. So you can really see the thought that needs to go into which dog ends up in the right location. Going back, that's invaluable information that we can add that would fall under our training checklists or training records and even just the applicant records themselves. So we've got this info, we've got this info, we've got this info, we've put it all together to make these matching decisions. This is, I don't expect you to read that, I know it's small, but this is a report, it's an Alkmaar report that you've probably all seen in puppy raising, but this would be a report that a host fills out. So that is a photo of one of our dogs that just had a nice long weekend over the 4th of July weekend, right? Rather than being here on campus, he was able to go to a home environment, make sure house manners were where they needed to be, and then they will fill out a report card similar to the way you all do, so we get more information on how that dog has done in that environment. This is what we had already talked about, our volunteer involvement. We have a lot of neat volunteer involvement opportunities on campus, and like I said, it can be so insightful to put a dog who in theory is trained to do certain skills and put them in the hands of somebody they don't know, but follows the same mechanics, rewards the dog, holds the leash the same way, and sometimes it's a flawless transition and we feel, okay, this dog is pretty close to being ready to be placed in a class or to be placed with a person waiting. Other times it's, okay, that's some information for us, right? They're just being dogs. What can we do in our training plan to better prepare the dog for when that transition happens? So our volunteers play a tremendous role in that. We were talking about checklists, so here is just another example, again, very small writing because there's a lot going on in there. That is Jenny's cat, actually, featured there as an exposure. But as you know, a big part of your jobs as raisers is to gradually expose your dogs to more and more real-life scenarios at a pace that they can handle, make those experiences positive. We continue that and really escalate it as those dogs advance in training. So the exposures might be to other animals, people, small animal distraction. We've got a dog in an airport there. Again, we want to expose the dogs to the situations that they're likely to encounter as a working dog. And knowing which environments were very easy for that dog versus which environments were a little more challenging helps guide us on picking the right applicant based on their personal lifestyle. So here's an example of dogs going on a boating outing. This is something that we might do because it's beneficial for underfootings, for how a dog deals with motion under their feet. We often, especially if they're applicants in Florida, they do go boating and they are going to spend time on the water. And while any dog can be encouraged to do it, there's some dogs that just put their ears in the breeze, right? And they just are loving life. And that would be a really appropriate match for a dog who's trained in all the tasks they need to perform, but is going to end up with somebody who goes boating on a weekly basis. We try to take those things into account. This is actually Campbell, who was recently placed as a service dog, and that picture, man, it just makes me smile every time. So you can see that early exposure, thanks to the North River Fire Department, getting us out on that boat really helped us find this dog's trained to perform tasks that could benefit a lot of applicants on our list, but man, is this the right lifestyle for her. So, and she's so cute. All right, there's Campbell with her forever person. Another example of exposures, that's a fun story. This is a dog named Ebony who was placed as a therapy dog at an Air Force base in Alaska. So we're in Florida, and we wanted to make sure that the dog that we brought to Alaska was really going to thrive in that environment. So here's an exposure where one of our instructors, Kate, is letting Ebony see planes. We are actually on a tarmac there in downtown St. Petersburg where they can see and hear that engine. That was really important because this dog was going to be on an Air Force base where planes are taking off and landing at pretty close proximity. And there's also ice in Alaska. And we don't have ice here, but we do have an ice rink. And so this was done with a lot of caution. We don't want slipping and sliding on the ice in a way that a dog could become injured. But she wore booties well. She was able to walk on that ice well. She checked the boxes with her training tasks. That was a good match made for a really unique placement where she's able to really work the entire base and visit from place to place in those higher stress situations and really bring a lot of joy and camaraderie to everybody. So that's Ebony. And then another example, small animal distraction, right? We all know what that feels like when you have a dog who is really interested in things in the environment. So again, there's a lot we can do in training to help the dogs be successful. We're not expecting them to be perfect. It's normal for a dog to notice chickens. But if somebody tells us they live in Ybor City or they live on a property that has free-range chickens, we're going to want to pick a dog who did well with that exposure. So that's another consideration we might put into matching. The team featured here, the video is actually a different dog just doing a little bit of work on distractions around those chickens and roosters in Ybor City and Tampa. But that's an example of just kind of assessing how the dog does in these environments and then making the appropriate choice. In Tommy's case, he's got quite a few chicken siblings. And he was able to successfully be placed as a service dog in a role that might have been hard for a dog that had a high level of small animal distraction. So it's more than just training, it's more than just training a skill, it's also looking at the bigger picture. What are we asking this dog to do on a daily basis? Where are they going and spending time? And that's a really important part of the process of matching if we want the dogs to be successful.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it prior to us getting to this point. So this is 6 weeks prior to class. We start to look at the applicants, the available applicants, more in depth. And all of the information that has been gathered from the phone interviews, the home interviews, the applicant files, the calls, all of that is put together. And the instructors actually pick the students that come into their class based on the dogs that are available. Now, we don't talk about what makes the dogs available, but there's, all the criteria. That's a whole nother presentation, right? For the dogs to become eligible for class. They also have to have their medical clearance. So at least 45 days before before class, they have their medical clearance and they're okayed by our vet staff to be matched in class as well. So 6 weeks, we're starting to look at the applicants who is available to come in during the class period that we're looking for, and then the pool of dogs that we have available. We start to make some tentative matches on paper. What looks like it would be a good team on paper based on where they live, what their lifestyle is, and maybe what preferences they have, either a female or a yellow dog or a male or something like that. So do we have what checks their boxes as well? And then 4 weeks before class, we start to invite these individuals officially into the class. So at that point, we have looked at their whole picture and looked at the entire picture of the dog and said, yes, we think that this is a great match. Or maybe we have 2 or 3 dogs that look like they are a good match. Or maybe we have 4 dogs and there's 2 people that have similar lifestyles, and we have these dogs that maybe once they come in, we'll make a final match. So, but 4 weeks before class is typically when we solidify who is actually coming in and send out those official class invites. The last match though, the last piece of the puzzle is really when the applicant comes here and now that they are students. And that's when the official match is made, because something that looks great on paper might not look great in person. Keep in mind that the individual that went out to do the home interview for this client that's coming in might not be the same instructor that is in class with them. So now the instructor that's in class that has to make the final match may never have met this person before. So while we've had the last 4, 5, 6 months with the dog, we spend about a day and a half with the individual getting to know them as best we can based on what was on paper, and then conversations with them in person to say, yes, this is a good match, or we need to start to rethink something else.
And that timeline of inviting the 4 weeks prior is what we aim for, because people are coming from all over the country. So they need time for their travel accommodations, maybe they need to rearrange a work or a school schedule. And those remaining weeks also give us some time when we have a better idea of the clients that are coming to us. What types of fine-tuned skills are we going to polish in these dogs? Are there a few more exposures we need to tick the boxes of in that class preparation for those remaining weeks leading up to it? So that is kind of a comfortable amount of time to start to make some of those decisions, get through health checks, and again, just really fine-tune, knowing that we might, as Jen said, have a few people in mind for a particular dog with some room to move things around. We're always remaining flexible with what's going to happen on match day itself. In addition to that, it's not uncommon as we're reviewing files, especially if somebody's been approved for quite some time, it's not uncommon for an instructor or one of our alumni advisors to revisit that applicant and get updates from them. So they might perform a second Juno walk. They might meet a different dog from Service Dog Program. We might just stop by and say, how are things going? Do you have any major life changes? It could be a phone call, a virtual call, but we'll stay on top of changes because we all know a lot can happen in a year. And we're also giving that leeway so that as they're committing to coming to class, hopefully we're not having any major upcoming medical procedures or surgeries. There's no big travel planned. We really want them to be ready to jump in and invest in the time it takes to both train their dog here on campus as well as maintain that partnership once they go home. We work pretty closely with our admissions team for some of those things as well, because they're the team that's taking in all the information initially and storing it, so they'll also reach out and say, do you have any updates? You know, each month, you're on our wait list, we're thinking of you, we're looking for the right dog for you. Do you have any blackout dates that you're unavailable? Do you have any big upcoming life changes that we need to be aware of?
So once the students get here, like I said, we have about a day and a half before we put their match in their hands. We spend a lot of that time getting to know the individual, but also doing a little bit of groundwork. So in the guide dog program, we will do another Juno walk because, like I said, the trainers and the instructors in class may not be the ones that went out and met this individual. And most likely they're not, because a lot of the home interview is done by our alumni advisors. So they want to see again what this person prefers when they have a harness in their hand as far as pace and pull. We also will put a dog in their hands, not necessarily the dog that they're going to be matched with, but we will put a dog in their hands for some real dog handling. And at this point, what we're looking for is also, how do they interact with their dog? What is their voice like? Do they have a real high-pitched voice that is going to get an activated dog even more activated all of the time? Do they have more of a calming presence? Are they a little bit more stoic? Don't like that licky type dog that's going to lick their leg up and down when they're sitting. So we want a little bit of personality, because not only do the dog and the individual have to work together, but they live together. They have to really like each other. And so that comes to the personality of the dog and the temperament of the dog and how that's going to click with the individual. So we talk to them a lot. It's we always find out different things that maybe weren't on the application. And so that we'll take all of the information that we already know, plus the information that we gather in some casual conversation into the match.
Doing that initial hands-on work with the dog when they first arrive is also a great way to get the jitters out. It's not the pressure of this is your match and it better go well, right? It's no, these are dogs in training. You know, we want you to handle this dog. Okay, now take this dog instead. And they can worry about some of those things that are hard at first if you haven't done it. How are you holding the leash? How are you handing a treat? Really just perfecting some of those mechanics can go a long way, and it really breaks the tension too. You know, you're showing up at a new place that you're unfamiliar with, you're going to be living here for 2, maybe 3 weeks at a time, and so just really breaking the tension. Dogs are good at that, right? So they get to have that one-on-one interaction leading up to the actual moment where they're meeting the dog that we have selected for them. Discussion before the dog is given. There's a lot we talk about. We are always emphasizing trust the process. We say that a lot. Our instructors say that a lot during class, so much so that one of our students in a recent class bought a shirt that said trust the process and wore it for the class photos, which I just think was hysterical and so appropriate because we're always using that phrase of trust the process. You're going to have ups and downs. This is not an easy process, but it's worth it. And it's normal for there to be times that your dog is the standout performer and you're, I'm doing great, and the dog next to you is struggling, and then you all know the feeling, you know, the next day your dog is acting out or doing something you weren't expecting, and the other person's having success. So we talk about that being a normal part of the learning process for animals and people. And another thing that really stands out is the journey of the dog, and putting into perspective the fact that there are so many people involved in getting the dogs to the point that they're ready to be placed. So that is lovely for these dogs. They're learning to be adaptable. They can live with and work for other people, transition pretty easily from person to person. Those are all important skills for an assistance dog to have in the training process. But it also means that when they first meet their student, they just think, you're a cool guy, you're a cool lady, you have snacks, that's awesome, you know, I'll go with you to your room, and that's okay. At first, the dog's journey has been just a lot of different chapters, right? They do a lot of different fun things with different people, and we reassure our students that it does take some time for the dog to truly transition and realize, this is permanent. I'm not moving to a new location next month or, you know, a year from now. And we see it time and time again, somebody's working relationship with their dog looks very different that first month they're placed versus at the year mark, 5 years, 10 years. You know, each year that relationship's growing and developing, and hopefully if we've done our jobs and found the right match, it just gets better with time, but we set that expectation. It can feel like, you know, a lot of pressure to get things perfect initially, but it is a tiny blip of time in that dog's entire trajectory. So we set that expectation with our students. Then they have to get to know the dog, and we talk about that as well.
Yeah, so we do stress, same thing in guide dogs, is that it's going to take about a year to make a very strong bond and a very strong team. And so trust the process, we say it as well, and it is a long process with those ups and downs. While we're having this discussion with all of the students, there is a lot of tension. All they really want is the dog in their hand. So we repeat all of this information throughout class several times too, because at that moment, they're hearing us, but they're thinking about their dog. So then we give them their dog's name and a little description about them. Not much, Then we ask them to return to their rooms. For guide dogs, we put their leash on the outside. And our canine keepers that have had a lot of time with these dogs in the kennels, they help us hand the dog over to the individual. And it's a really nice moment for those canine keepers that have invested so much into the dogs. The dogs are delivered individually to each student. So they're in their room, they're waiting in there, we knock on the door, we enter, and then we ask them to call their dog. So they've already had their name, they know the dog's name, so they will call their dog, Juno, come. And then the dog goes to them, right? Just like Emily said, I don't know who you are, but you have snacks, and this is what I've been trained to do. So they go to their individual, and then we give them some time together. The instructions that we give them is to say their name a lot, use your treats, pet them, stay calm, and get to know your dog. We don't want them to give a whole lot of cues right away, not saying no, don't do this, don't do that. We're not having them get up and walk around right away. It's a slow process as we introduce and just give them some time together. Sometimes the dog whines and looks at the door and says, well, when is somebody familiar coming back? Or most of the time, they just stay there with the person and they just start to form this relationship. And then the instructor comes back and then we start the work. So we start with basic skills. We start with something that the dog is very familiar with, very good at, that they can be very successful with, and they can get lots of food reward. And right, the food helps to solidify that bond very, very quickly. Lots of food reward, still very individual in the room, just the dog, the person, and the trainer. So not a lot of distractions, the focus is on the basic skills, the focus is on the handler, and lots of food reward. From there we go to relief. That's one of the most important things we need to do, is go out and relieve the dog. What are those expectations? How do you talk to the dog? And then a little bit more bonding before we come together as a group. We want some communication between the dog and the student before we come together as a group.
Yeah, that bonding time is really important, and as Jen said, we do really emphasize your job right now. The first task you have is to make friends with this dog. Make it a positive relationship. They already know the cues. We don't need you to start shouting cues at your dog. Just get to know them and enjoy each other's company. An analogy I will sometimes use is it's similar to how you have to build a relationship with another person, right? If you went to a new job and you showed up to work and your supervisor just started shouting orders at you, sit there, do that, do this, do that, you'd be like, man, I've made a poor decision. I don't know that I want to stay in this job. But if you have a supervisor or you have a team member that you've been working with for years and you have some rapport together and they say, I know this project is not your favorite, but I really need you to do it, you're willing to do it. You have a relationship, right? And a paycheck in some cases, but many of you are volunteers, so you might be doing it because of that relationship, right, that you have with the person. So we explain the same thing with the dogs, is build that relationship first before you start telling them what to do. That's a big part of it. And then when it comes to learning the cues and the skills that the dogs have already been taught, it's a bit like teaching a ballroom dance where one person knows how to dance and the other doesn't, but it goes a lot better because the dog already knows the steps. So they might be clunky, they might be stepping on each other, metaphorically, hopefully, but they're figuring out the moves, and then the dog already knows the moves, so hopefully it starts to get smoother and smoother as they work together.
So, what happens if it doesn't work, right? We do our best to do our homework, we do a lot of it, but we don't always get it right. We do make mistakes, for one reason or another. So dog swaps in class do happen, and they could happen at any time during class. And it's important to know that it might not be the fault of the individual or the fault of the dog. It's just not the right match. Some of the reasons behind the match for a guide dog swap are simply it's not the right pace and it's not the right amount of guiding tension. If those things don't match, then the team is not going to be able to work out. So that might just be a simple miscalculation on our part as instructors. Sometimes, though, what happens is a person may come in with less confidence, and then 2 weeks into working with the guide dog, they're like, this is great. I can really move out, or I can really stride out, and confidence comes up. Now that dog that we put in their hands that was a bit of a slower pace isn't quite matching their confidence, and they've come up in their pace. So that does happen occasionally too. Some other reasons for swaps could be sometimes things that we don't see in training. And Emily has a great story to support that one.
Absolutely, yeah. So as we mentioned earlier, they're dogs, not robots, right? And we can't always predict exactly what their behavior is going to be in any given situation. So that does happen. There is stress. Not all of it is bad stress, but it's a stressful transition to go from one day-to-day routine to now you're with a person doing all of this really high-pressure work. And sometimes behaviors come up where we have to step in and make a call, just like we would in training if we had seen it, to say, you know what, this dog is telling us that this is not for them and that they're not thriving, they're not going to succeed in the role. And that is our job, and we would much rather do that and make that decision easier for that person and say, hey, we see what's happening here and it's not the right thing for you. Let us help you make a better decision, or let's pair you with a different dog. We'd way rather do that during class than down the line the dog goes home and isn't successful. So the story that I have is, I don't have him here with me and I wish I did, but I was able to adopt one of our demonstration and ambassador dogs. His name is Benny. He turned 6 years old this year, but I didn't actually know Benny at all leading up to class. He was in the guide dog program, and he went to class with a student. He is, I'm biased, but he's an exceptional little dog. He really likes training. He's very animated, happy to comply with different cues. Worked really nicely, but then in class, he started to manifest some stress with loud alarm barking. Specifically, like if a person appeared in the hallway and he saw kind of the shadowy figure. Again, some of that is normal dog behavior, right? It's not abnormal for a dog to bark when they're startled, but he was doing it a lot. And I think it increased and it increased and it increased, and it was to the point that this is not acceptable for a dog that's going to be in a working role. So the instructors in that class made the decision, this dog is telling us he doesn't want to do this work or it's too stressful for him. So they pulled him from class, and I lucked out because he's a great dog, but he still will do that every now and then. And I'm sighted. I'm fortunate to not, be easily triggered by that loud noise. So if he does do an alarm bark, it's very easy to redirect him because I can tell him what to do. And he's not in a public access role. He does demonstrations, and we just found a better fit for him. So that's another really good example of a time that the match didn't work out, but again, we're just putting in that work to find, okay, let's pivot, what's our next option here for this dog, and where are they going to be most happy and successful. If it works.
Yeah, Benny was actually in my class, so I take the responsibility that that all happened during my class, and I had to make the difficult decision of pulling him. I had him in training, and we didn't see any of that, and then when we went to class, we did, and it was a very, very difficult decision, but Benny found his place in an amazing role with Emily.
Yes, and there's a saying that we sometimes say as instructors that just when you say, my dog would never, there they go nevering, like never before. So don't get too confident, they keep you humble. If it goes well, this is the end result. So one more nice showcase of how lovely that moment can be. I think this is unedited, so this is a longer version. You see it all. You see the happy enthusiasm. You might see this dog losing focus a little and checking out the room before checking back in. But I think the joy is palpable, and that's why we do what we do.
Yes, usually our videos have the nice edited version with music behind it, but we thought we would give you the real deal here for one of them and see the excitement, the genuine excitement from both parties here.
All right, I think we are at time.
We are.
So with that being said, thank you all very much for your attention. Thank you for your good dogs for settling this whole time, and have a rest of your conference.